Welcome back to Echoes of Ihsan, everybody. We're diving into some pretty fascinating Islamic thought here. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the works of Imam al-Ghazali.
A towering figure.
Huge in Islamic theology and philosophy, really.
Yeah.
We're going to be focusing on his exploration of, I think, a pretty fundamental question to faith.
Yeah.
The nature of God.
And the nature of God. It's a question that, has really captivated thinkers, for centuries.
Centuries, yeah.
And al-Ghazali's approach, I think, is so fascinating because it's not just like a dry,
Textbook.
theological treatise. Instead, he's weaving together philosophical reasoning,
Right.
spiritual insights, and, incredibly practical guidance.
And practical, yeah.
Challenging us to, look inward, understand that, the journey to knowing God is, so intertwined with...
Ourselves.
Yeah, with knowing ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what I love about al-Ghazali. We're not talking about just abstract concepts here.
Right.
This is really like understanding God's nature in a way that illuminates our own lives, like our purpose,
Exactly.
our relationship with the divine.
It becomes very, very real.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at 4 of his most well-known works. The Incoherence of the Philosophers.
Oh, yeah.
Where he critiques prevailing philosophical ideas about God. We have The Marvels of the Heart.
Love that one.
Where he delves into the heart's capacity for spiritual perception. Al-Ghazali on disciplining the self, which offers practical guidance on purifying our hearts and actions.
Yes.
And the remembrance of death.
Yes.
A powerful reminder of our mortality. And the importance of living a life that is pleasing to God.
So important. And each of these works really offers a unique lens, I think, through which to kind of understand al-Ghazali's perspective on God.
Absolutely.
Like Incoherence of the Philosophers. He really goes head to head with some of the leading thinkers of his time.
Yeah.
Challenging their interpretations of God's attributes, his actions. And he was deeply concerned about some philosophical ideas that, to him, diminished God's absolute unity and transcendence.
Okay. Could you give us an example of one of those ideas that, al-Ghazali took on?
Yeah.
'Cause it's
absolutely.
What was controversial philosophically, 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, it can be hard to even wrap our heads around what that would be.
Totally.
Right. So one of the main ideas that he really refuted was this notion that God acts, quote unquote, by nature.
By nature, okay.
Yeah, this idea, popular among some philosophers of his era,
Okay.
was suggesting that, God's actions are basically determined by his inherent nature. Almost as if he's operating on autopilot.
Oh, interesting.
And al-Ghazali saw this as a limitation on God's absolute will and freedom. He's saying that, if God acts by nature, it implies that there's some kind of constraint, a lack of choice.
Yeah.
Right. Instead, he's insisting that God acts out of pure will, a will that's not bound by any external force or predetermined nature.
So for al-Ghazali, it's not just this mechanical unfolding.
No.
It's
an expression of will. It's a deliberate choice.
A deliberate expression of this infinite will.
Exactly. Right.
It's like we try to, put God...
Put him in a box.
In a box.
Yeah.
Defined by our human understanding.
And that's exactly what al-Ghazali's pushing back against. Right. He's emphasizing this transcendence.
This transcendence.
Right. This idea that, God is beyond our limited categories of thought and comprehension. He argued that, attributing multiplicity or composition to God.
So as if he was made up of parts.
Yeah, as if he's made up of different parts or subject to, internal divisions.
Right.
Diminishes his absolute oneness. Right. Imagine, trying to describe, the ocean.
The vastness of the ocean.
Yes.
To someone who's never seen anything bigger than a puddle.
Yeah.
Right. Their understanding would be so limited, so incomplete, that it wouldn't even come close to capturing, the reality of the ocean.
Yeah.
And similarly, our human minds are confined by our experiences.
By our limited, finite experiences.
Can never fully grasp the infinite nature of God.
It's humbling. It is.
It is humbling.
But then it also makes you think, well, if our minds are so limited,
right,
how can we even begin to understand God?
Yeah, it's the question, right? It's a question that al-Ghazali really wrestled with extensively in his work. He acknowledges the challenges that we face
as humans,
as finite being, trying to, comprehend the infinite. He uses the example of humans trying to conceptualize a place beyond the world's edge.
What's beyond the edge of the world.
Yeah, like we can imagine going further and further, but our minds,
hit a wall. Ultimately hit a wall because, our understanding of spaces is like limited by our experience of the world.
Yeah.
He uses another example, like the concept of blackness.
Oh.
Right? We can kind of intellectually grasp this concept of blackness as a universal.
Yeah.
But like our actual perception of it is always tied to these specific instances like
a black shirt.
Yeah, like the black shirt or, the night sky. We're seeing particulars.
Particulars, yeah.
Of blackness, not blackness itself in its pure form.
So we're thinking in concrete terms.
In concrete terms.
Limited by...
our senses.
Yeah, our senses. So then how does he reconcile then this human limitation with the idea that we can have a genuine knowledge of God?
And this is where I think his exploration of God's knowledge becomes so important, especially in the incoherence of the philosophers. He refutes this idea, prevalent among some philosophers, at the time, that God knows only himself.
Oh.
Right? Like, think about it.
Oh.
How limiting would it be, if God...
the creator
of this vast and intricate universe was only aware of himself, right? Like, knowing all of creation, like, every atom, every galaxy, the inner thoughts of every being.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make God even greater?
It's such an interesting point because, you think of knowledge as like this inward focus.
Right.
Like, the deeper understanding of a particular subject. But he's saying, actually, for God, knowing everything.
It expands him.
Including us.
Yeah.
Actually makes him more perfect.
Exactly. Knowledge is a form of perfection for al-Ghazali. The more encompassing and complete one's knowledge, the greater their perfection. He's arguing that, like, God's knowledge encompasses everything, particulars and universals, the past, present, and future, all without compromising his absolute unity.
Wow. It makes me think of this philosophical question that he was wrestling with.
Yeah.
How can God know the ever-changing world, like these particulars, the details of our lives, like the fluttering of a butterfly's wings?
Right.
While remaining unchanging himself.
Yeah.
How can he be intimately involved with creation without, like, being limited by it?
Right.
Mind-boggling.
It's a mind-boggling concept.
Right.
He's walking this tightrope, trying to affirm God's absolute knowledge while upholding his transcendence, beyond our categories of time and space.
Yeah.
He was a master at, like, navigating those, like, complex theological waters. And it leads us to, like, this other really fascinating dimension of his thought, which is this idea that the heart is a mirror, reflecting divine realities. And he explores this, in the marvels of the heart.
Marvels of the heart.
Think about, like, your own heart, not just as, like, the pump, of your blood, but as this, like, mirror capable of reflecting the divine light.
Wow.
Right. And, like, what would it take to polish that mirror so that it reflects more clearly, more accurately?
It's such a good analogy because it makes, this kind of abstract idea of knowing God feel more personal, more tangible.
Yeah.
It's not just about, like, an intellectual understanding.
Gets at it.
It's about, like, this quality of the heart.
It's about receptivity.
Yeah, receptivity to the divine.
Yes. Yeah, it is about receptivity. It's not enough to just kind of grasp these concepts intellectually. We have to, like, embody them through spiritual practice, you know, and cultivate the heart's capacity to actually perceive the divine. This is where al-Ghazali's emphasis on the heart, as more than just a pump, but as this, like, center of spiritual perception, I think, becomes so crucial.
So for him, the heart isn't just about emotions. It's like
the core.
It's like the very core of our being.
Yeah.
It's that seat of both intellectual and spiritual understanding.
Wow.
It's like that faculty that connects us to both, the physical world through our senses, but also the spiritual world through divine inspiration.
Yes.
He makes this really beautiful comparison.
Oh, I love this one.
Where he compares intellectual knowledge to food.
Yeah.
And religious knowledge to medicine.
So good.
He's saying that just as our bodies need both, for health, our hearts need both for spiritual well-being.
And that's what's so powerful about his analogies. It's like he brings this concept to life. It's like, okay, Intellectual knowledge, that nourishes the mind,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Helps us understand the world around us, but religious knowledge, that's like medicine.
Yeah.
It heals the heart.
Feels, purifies.
Purifies it, allows it to, like, perceive deeper truths.
Yeah.
Right? It's through that inner door,
That intro.
to the spiritual world that we can truly connect with God.
Yeah. And this is where his exploration of dreams in the marvels of the heart becomes so intriguing, because he saw dreams, not just as like fleeting images, but as evidence of the heart's ability to kind of transcend those limitations of the physical world.
Right.
Access spiritual knowledge.
Yeah.
Dreams as a window into the spiritual world.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's such a fascinating idea.
Because we're so used to, like, dismissing dreams as just
random
neural activity.
Yeah.
But he's saying, no, there's something deeper there.
Deeper there, yeah. He even believed that the heart could perceive past and future events in dreams.
Whoa.
Because of its connection to the realm of spirits, right? So it's like he's saying that within us, within our hearts, lies this like incredible potential for spiritual insight that we often overlook. Right. So he's saying that the heart has this incredible capacity to connect with a reality. That's beyond our normal, waking perception.
Right.
But that potential needs to be cultivated.
Okay.
And this is where, his emphasis on self-discipline comes in.
Yeah.
So in his work, al-Ghazali on disciplining the self, he provides like really practical guidance on how to purify our hearts and our actions.
Right.
So that we can more clearly reflect the divine attributes.
Right. So it's not just like passively hoping our hearts are going to become pure.
Yeah.
It's like we have to actively engage.
Actively, yes.
In those practices that refine Polish.
Yes.
What are some of the practices that he recommends?
Well, he really emphasizes this importance of like purifying the heart, from negative influences,
right.
like, greed, envy, arrogance, which, he sees as like veils, obscuring our perception of the divine.
Have the divine.
Right.
And, he offers these really specific practices like remembrance of God, contemplation, sincere repentance as ways to cleanse and polish that, like mirror of the heart.
Or the mirror.
So think of it like each time we engage in these practices, it's like we're wiping away like a bit of dust or grime
from the mirror of our hearts, allowing it to kind of reflect that divine light
more clearly.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a continuous refinement.
Refinement, yeah.
Purification.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stop at like the individual spiritual practice.
No, he doesn't.
He really emphasizes, that living a life that reflects God's attributes in our interactions with others is just as important.
He was very adamant about this, actually. He believed that, like, our spiritual growth is inextricably linked to how we treat one another, right? He outlines these 3 key relationships that we need to cultivate, our relationship with others, our relationship with God, and our relationship with ourselves. And he uses, the life of the Prophet Muhammad as the ultimate model for all 3.
The ultimate model. This makes me think about the concept of Ihsan.
Yes.
Which is often translated as excellence.
Excellence.
Perfection.
Perfection. Yeah. And it's about, striving to be the best version of ourselves. Yeah.
For the sake of God.
Yes.
Right. Not just in our kind of personal piety, but also how we engage with the world around us.
Absolutely. Ihsan is about, embodying God's attributes in our thoughts, our words, our actions. It's about striving for excellence.
In all aspects of our lives.
Internal and external.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And al-Ghazali was very clear that, this journey
of self-discipline
is absolutely essential for drawing closer to God.
Right. And what's so fascinating is, he emphasizes intention.
Oh, yes.
In our actions. He says actions done negligently are in vain.
In vain because
the heart hasn't truly participated in them.
Yeah, the heart's not there.
It's not just going through the motions.
Right.
It's about that full presence of the heart.
Full presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he uses like this really, powerful story of Ibrahim Adam.
To illustrate this, Ibrahim Adam was like a prince who, renounced his wealth and kingdom to become this like wandering ascetic.
Wow.
And despite living in poverty, facing all these challenges, he remained just steadfast in his devotion to God. And there's this story where, he's captured by a soldier.
Captured?
Yeah, who mistakes him for, like, a runaway slave, And, like, the soldier's like, who are you? And he says, I am a slave of God Most High. Right. And then, they're like, where is your home? And he points to the cemetery and says, there is a promise for all there. Therefore, it is a settlement.
Wow. So it's this image of how, like, a purified soul,
yes,
finds contentment, purpose, even in the face of, like, adversity, yeah.
Yeah, and, even in those moments of hardship, his heart was so aligned with the divine that, like, his actions just flowed naturally from that place of deep connection. It's like his actions are congruent with his heart.
Yeah. He saw himself as a slave of God, not in a sense of, subjugation.
Right.
But in a sense of complete surrender. And devotion.
Aligning our will with the divine will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of our ego's desires and just surrendering to a higher purpose. And, al-Ghazali also talks about, like, these veils. That prevent us.
From connecting with God.
Yeah. And these veils can be external, like
worldly things.
Yeah, like wealth, status, power.
Yeah.
But they can also be these, like, internal obstacles,
Like what?
Blind imitation, uncontrolled desires, arrogance.
So it's not just about renouncing, like, possessions.
No.
It's about purifying the heart from anything that
distracts
us from God.
From seeking God's pleasure.
Yeah.
Right. From anything that creates a barrier between, like, our hearts.
Yeah.
And the divine.
Yeah. Right. So it's about, letting go of those veils, both, internal and external, so that our hearts can kind of, reflect the divine attributes more clearly. And this brings us to this other really powerful concept, which is
death.
The significance of death.
Yeah.
Which he explores, in the remembrance of death. And he doesn't present death as, like, this thing to be feared.
Right.
But as an opportunity for reflection.
A reminder.
A reminder of our ultimate purpose.
Like, by contemplating our own mortality.
Yeah.
It gives us a deeper appreciation for life. And for living in a way that is
pleasing to God.
Yeah, pleasing to God. So it's not like being obsessed with death.
No.
It's using that awareness of our limited time. To fuel that spiritual growth.
Exactly. He sees death not as, like, an end, but like a transition to a higher state of being, a precious gift for believers.
A precious gift.
Right, because it's a release from the, like, limitations and distractions of the material world.
Yeah.
And he uses this, like, incredibly vivid imagery from, Umar ibn Abdul-Aziz's sermon on the importance of preparing for the afterlife. He's describing, like, the burdens of the afterlife as so weighty that they would cause stars to fall and mountains to melt.
Wow.
It's powerful imagery.
Right. It really drives home the point that, we need to
make the most of our time.
Yeah. Make the most of our time. Prepare for that ultimate journey.
To meet our Creator.
Right.
It's not about, like, living in fear.
Right.
It's about recognizing the weight, of our choices and actions and striving to, align them with the divine will.
Yeah. He also shares that really emotional story of, like, the angel of death visiting the prophet Muhammad.
Yes.
Right. Even the prophet who was, like, the closest to God. Experienced, like, a range of emotions.
Yeah.
When confronting his mortality. It really highlights that.
We're human.
Even the most righteous individuals. Are human.
And facing our mortality is this, like, deeply personal. Profound.
Profound experience.
Yeah. It's a reminder that, we're all
on this journey
together, facing the same destination.
Right.
And it's through that confrontation with our own,
finitude
that we gain a deeper appreciation for the infinite
nature of God.
And for living a life that draws us
closer to him.
Yeah, closer to him.
And this brings us back to, like, al-Ghazali's emphasis on Ihsan.
Right.
Right. If death is this,
yeah,
like, ultimate test.
Ultimate test.
Of our sincerity, our devotion to God.
Right.
Then living a life of excellence.
Yeah.
Of like embodying God's attributes.
Right. In our thoughts, words, actions becomes like the ultimate preparation for that final journey.
It's like he's saying that every moment
is
an opportunity.
An opportunity.
To refine.
To refine our hearts.
Align ourselves with the divine.
Yes.
Polish that mirror.
Polish the mirror.
So it reflects.
More brilliantly.
More brilliantly.
More brilliantly. To reflect that divine light.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really about recognizing that this life is
a journey.
It is a journey. It's a preparation for what lies beyond. And al-Ghazali reminds us, that we don't have to face this journey alone.
Right.
He really emphasizes this importance of like seeking guidance, from those who have like traveled further along the path.
Yeah.
Teachers, mentors, spiritual guides.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, when you're trekking through unfamiliar terrain.
Exactly.
It's so helpful to have like a seasoned guide,
Yep.
To point out like the landmarks, the things you might miss.
The hidden wonders.
Yeah. Keep you from getting lost.
Keep you on the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so important to have those companions on the journey.
Yeah.
Those who can offer like wisdom and support and encouragement.
Yeah, that encouragement.
They illuminate the path, they help us like clarify our doubts and just like, inspire us to keep striving,
Yeah. Towards the divine.
Towards the divine,
Yeah. That interconnectedness.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I'm curious though about something, al-Ghazali seems to put a lot of emphasis on like purifying our desires.
Yes.
Letting go of worldly attachments.
Yeah.
But desires are a natural part of being human.
Right.
How can we like function without any desires at all?
That's a great question. And actually al-Ghazali addresses this very directly in his works. He's not advocating for completely eradicating desire. He recognizes that desires are this like powerful force. Yeah.
Within us, it's a source of energy,
Mm-hmm.
that can either propel us towards our spiritual goals,
Right.
or, lead us totally astray,
Right.
And he uses this analogy of a rider
Okay.
and a horse.
Mm.
Our desires, are like this, powerful steed,
Mm.
that can either carry us to our destination
Yeah.
or, buck us off and like,
lead us astray.
lead us totally astray.
Right.
So the key is to become a skilled rider.
Ah, a skilled rider.
Right. It's to understand the nature of our desires and to learn how to like guide them towards, what is truly beneficial. He's not saying, we should become like these emotionless robots.
Right.
He's saying that we need to like cultivate wisdom, discernment, so that we can, distinguish between like, desires that lead us towards God and those that like pull us away.
Right. It makes me think of the difference between like, short-term gratification and like long-term fulfillment.
We chase after those things that promise like that immediate pleasure.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. But ultimately, leave us feeling empty.
Yeah.
So he's encouraging us like to align our desires with something much greater, something that like brings that last meaning to our lives.
Exactly. And that alignment, that process of refinement is really at the heart of Ihsan.
Yeah, at the heart of Ihsan.
Right. It's about like recognizing that, every thought, word, action is an opportunity to reflect God's attributes.
Manifest his beauty and perfection
in
the world.
Yeah.
It's a continuous striving for excellence.
Yes.
It's a commitment to like living in a way that honors like that divine presence within us.
Within us and all of creation.
And all of creation.
Yeah.
It's a challenging path, but it's incredibly inspiring.
It is inspiring.
It's like he's saying like that each of us
Yeah.
has this potential.
So we have this potential.
To become.
Yeah.
Like a reflection of God's light.
Beautiful.
Yeah. To radiate like his love.
Right.
And compassion in the world.
And he reminds us that this journey of self-discovery, and understanding God, it's an ongoing process. It's not about like reaching some final destination.
Right.
It's about like continually refining our hearts, deepening that connection, with the divine.
Continually striving to embody like his attributes.
Embody them.
More fully.
More fully.
Each day. So I guess my question is, where do you begin? You know, your own journey of self-discovery and understanding God.
Yeah.
Like if you were to take one key insight from al-Ghazali's work, what would it be?
I think al-Ghazali would probably say, start with the heart.
The heart.
Yeah. Look inward, examine your intentions, purify those desires, and seek knowledge,
Right.
both intellectual and spiritual.
Yeah.
Nourish your mind with wisdom, your heart with devotion, and remember the heart's incredible ability
To perceive the divine.
to perceive the divine and cultivate its purity through, those practices like remembrance, contemplation, sincere repentance.
Right.
And never underestimate the power of even the smallest step.
The smallest step.
Taken in the direction of God.
That journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly.
And every step we take.
Every effort.
Brings
us closer.
to that ultimate reality
Yeah.
that we call God.
Beautiful.
This has been such an incredible deep dive,
Yeah.
into the work of Imam al-Ghazali. I mean, we've only just scratched the surface. But I hope it sparked a curiosity.
I hope so.
Inspired you to explore his work even further. I mean, there's a whole world of wisdom there, just waiting to be discovered.
Waiting to be discovered. And his words, they offer this timeless guidance for navigating the complexities of life.
Yeah.
And for deepening our understanding of ourselves and our relationship with the divine.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
Of your journey into the echoes of Ihsan.
Echoes of Ihsan.
May your path be filled with light, guidance, and the blessings of seeking knowledge.
And until next time, may peace be upon you.